Welcome to Mighty Married Moms. Join us at our kitchen table twice a week as the Mighty Married Moms, Debbie, Linda, Wendy, invite spectacular guests to weigh in on staying sexy, vibrant, and healthy, building marriages with soul-satisfying connection, raising happy, healthy, successful kids. Conversations with Mighty Married Moms will bring you closer to the life you really want. Episode 132. Today's show is brought to you by Deborah C. Owen, youth mindset trainer and parent coach at youcanraisegreatkids.com. If your child, teen, or young adult seems to be floundering and is stressed out and you don't know what to do, don't keep putting off getting the help you all need and deserve. Now is the time to help the young person in your life learn to thrive with confidence, grit, and resilience. Call Deborah Owen at 978-835-4354.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Mighty Married Moms. I'm Debbie Owen from youcanraisegreatkids.com.
I'm Linda Tighe from allwellbreaksloose.com.
Hi, everyone. It's Wendy from connectagain.org.
And we are really excited to be able to introduce you today to Carrie Campbell from the Mindset Performance Academy and Awaken Your Freedom. She is a 37-year-old mom of two kids, ages 10 and 12. And she was a single mom for 3 years after leaving an abusive relationship about 10 years ago. But she's now married to her soulmate, life and business partner, Brian Grasso. Carrie's been a clinical counselor for nearly 20 years, and her experience has spanned the field. Her early practice was in the area of kids with special needs and child development, with expertise in working with kids in the autism spectrum. And for over the last 20 years, she's worked with teenagers with psychosocial difficulties, couples in need of relationship support, and individuals spanning all areas of crisis, including eating disorders and addictions. So Carrie and Brian have created a mindset system for understanding the subconscious process and how to move through a journey of understanding and growth, and she is a master mindset coach. And we are thrilled to have you with us today, Carrie. We all need a better mindset, right?
Thank you. We all do. I agree. Thank you for having me. I'm excited. This is great.
Yeah, this is great. Well, can you start out by just giving us, just a short story about what has put you into this position today? How did, without the this, then this, then this, what's like the story that kind of encapsulates all of that?
That's a really great question. So I think that it's really twofold. I think that there's a personal aspect to it as well as a professional journey. As you mentioned, I have been a clinical counselor for 20 years. So as young as 3 years old, my intention in life was to heal the world. Like that's what I wanted to do. If you asked me when I was 3 years old what I was going to do, I was going to change the world. I was going to heal the world. So I've been my entire life, I've been really, put here to serve others and elevate others. So that's really what my life has been committed to. So professionally, I think that I've always been seeking, deepening my own levels of understanding of how I can truly serve people and help people grow. And that really, the pinnacle of all of that really is mindset. Everything comes down to a subconscious programming. So, when myself and Brian came together 6 years ago in our relationship, we knew very much that we wanted to create something together that could really, truly offer a foundational change rather than the external change of just, implementing, anger management situations or even, personal training, physique programs, nutrition, and all that. That's just the outer surface of stuff. We got to get to the core. So professionally, that's why I'm here. And then insofar as a personal journey, I think that everything in life is an evolution. And, I have been in an abusive relationship. I've actually been in, I want to say, multiple abusive relationships because it wasn't just my marriage. I allowed abusive friendships into my world and abusive business relationships into my world. And I think we so easily forget that abusive relationships just don't come inside your marriage. They can come from various different ways. So for me, it was a really huge awareness to look inside and see what was I doing that was attracting that kind of relationship into my life. And so there was an evolution of my own insofar as understanding that and being able to grow from that. And along the way, I realized that, there really is no top rung of the ladder of life. And I think that we so much, we quip the idioms of like, it's about the journey, it's not the destination, but so few people actually integrate that and understand that fully. It isn't a destination. And the second we view it as a destination of life, we literally are cutting the ladder at the top rung. But if we allow it into our minds to accept that the ladder doesn't stop, we can evolve and we can grow. And so personally, where I'm at now in business and my own personal life is all a culmination of those two things kind of mixing together.
That's amazing stuff. And actually, I should let our audience know we are very privileged to have Carrie here for 2 episodes. And so what I would like to do, actually, that's a wonderful introduction. I'd like to get a little bit more in our next episode about kind of abusive relationships, because our next episode is really going to focus on moms and women in particular, and the relationships and the things that they can do to grow their own lives. But that also gives us context for the focus of our conversation for this kitchen table is round table is about relationships with our kids. And I would love to know a little bit more about, the relationships that you've had in your life. How has that had an impact on your relationship with your kids?
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to be every gushing mom right now, and totally, my kids.
Good.
When you were mentioning my, kind of my history there, and I was like 10 and 12. Oh my gosh, my kids are 10 and 12. Like, you blink your eyes and you don't know how that quite happened. My son is almost as tall as me, which isn't really hard to beat if you've met in person. But to be honest with you, it's impacted so greatly. And for me, my kids were the reason I changed my life. I was sitting there one day, prior to leaving my ex-relationship, and I looked at my kids and realized that I was creating their story for them, which is a lot of what we talk about in mindset, is how you create your story, and your subconscious story is programmed into you from a very young age. And I realized that I was creating their story, and the story that I was writing for them wasn't a story that I really wanted to give them. So I made a significant decisions based on what I wanted to offer them insofar as their landscape on life and how to live life and how to be. So, they have everything to do with it, and everything I have to do now has everything to do with my kids. And, mindset at large plays a huge impact in everything I do with my kids. I always joke about the fact that they're the youngest mindset gurus in the world, because they know the stuff inside out as well that we teach and we practice.
Sure. Well, tell us a little bit about, what role does mindset have in our relationship with our kids? What does that look like in our parenting? What does that look like? How do we enact it?
How do we?
Absolutely. Well, that's a great and loaded question, and we only have like 25 minutes. So I'm going to try and pick my top tidbits. As you mentioned, I am, my early practice was in child development, so I could talk forever about child development. And I've always been very blessed, as a parent. I've always made this joke that I'm so glad I'm a child development specialist, because otherwise I'd be walking around going, how do I make sense of all of this, But I think mindset plays, I think that I want to say that the very first thing as a parent to recognize is that your kids they're not unlike you. I think it's important to have expectations on our kids, but we all too often forget that they're human beings living in human experience as well. And so, that we understand that if I get frustrated about something in my life, how can I look at my child and get annoyed with them getting frustrated for something? It's our job to help them understand all of that. Reactionary situations are a product of mindset for everybody. So as much as I, as a 37-year-old mom, have ego, which, in our practice, we refer to that as bound nature. Bound nature is a reactive state of being. Everything negative in you fits into this bound nature category, which is just another word for ego. So everybody gets confused by the word ego, which is why we renamed it for our own purposes. But kids have ego too. And kids have, negative experiences and negative reactions. And instead of, I always reference why there's value not in yelling at your kids, because you don't want to be yelled at.
Right.
Exactly.
So, and yelling at your child is not going to help them understand.
Does that work?
It's our job to help them understand. No, I don't know if it works on anybody. And this is a huge point for me from a parenting standpoint, and it falls into the mindset category that I think that we've become conditioned as a society to yell at our kids and to shame them and to make them feel lesser than. But I don't know any adult who you put in the same situation who wouldn't say, stop yelling at me, because that becomes now a defense mechanism, and we shut down when we start to get yelled at because it's a perceived threat. So if I, as an adult, don't want that, why would I shed that onto my child? Moreover, you know, when we're encountering trying to help create change with our kids and we yell at them, we're not creating change from a place of true desire to change. We're creating change from a place of scarcity, a place of fear. If I don't, you know, at the core of every child, every human being is the need to feel loved and secure. Mm-hmm. And if we yell, we strip, and we yell or we get angry, we strip them of that security and that love. So now they're making changes in order to gain that back because they're afraid they don't have it. I personally, as a mom, you know, have I yelled at my kids? Yes, years ago. We've adopted the principle of no yelling in our house, and thankfully it took practice, but we made it work. But, you know, I have like tried to look at my kids as like mini me's, you know, insofar as I want them to be inspired to change. I don't want them to be scared. Mm-hmm. So I think that's, you know, I get a lot of parenting questions, and that would be one of the ones that I think is the core of it all. Your kids haven't lived your life yet, which is something that as parents we also do. Why are you lying? You're not supposed to lie. Well, your child's 5 years old. They don't have the boundaries of understanding what lying is, the you know, the outcomes of it, the negative implications of it. Why are they lying? Because they're human beings who are growing and evolving and trying to make sense of this world. So it's important to understand that rather than just yell at it, if that makes sense. I told you I could talk forever about this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I know we all believe in that mindset as well, and I've always practiced that as a mom too. But you know, it's so interesting. My boys are teenagers, and we're really never in any kind of yelling. You know, I just don't feel like I ever need to do it. And they're really good boys, and they're good citizens at school, and they're good friends, and all that. But there's still a little piece of me that feels like, am I doing things wrong because I'm not yelling at my kids? It's so funny that really? Sort of that sort of mindset. Like, am I not being tough enough, or am I not? You know, I don't know.
Interesting.
Not enough for me to certainly change my behavior, because I just don't think yelling is effective. But it's just interesting to me that there's that. I don't know, that pressure, societal, like, especially with boys, right?
It's in the ether.
Yeah, in the ether, the boys are supposed to be tough. Tough them up.
Right.
Yeah. You know, I think, I mean, of course, like, I think that we're unconsciously, I know we're unconsciously programmed by our world, whether we know it or not, you know, and I think to stand within yourself as a parent, as a woman, as whatever the case may be, you know, I think questions do permeate from time to time. Am I doing this right? And the reality for parenting is there is no playbook. Right? Well, no, there's probably a million playbooks by a million people who've written them, right? But is there a right way? Is there a wrong way? I think that the only way is to make the decision to get better, you know, and, you know, why do we yell at our kids? Because we're in ego and we're reacting to the situation. So how do we start to create change to that? Well, we start to change ourselves. Right. And that's where it has to start. Every single journey, whether it's in relationships or business or with your kids, it has to start inside yourself. The happier I have become in my own life, the more understanding I've become of my own ego and my own ego reactions, the better able I am to control my reactions with my kids. And, you know, people, you know, because not unlike you, I'm sorry, I've forgot your name.
Wendy, Linda, and Debbie.
Okay. I forgot. But you mentioned that, you know, your boys are really good boys, and, you know, we get the same thing all the time. You know, people, everywhere we go, people comment on how amazing the kids are. And, you know, people ask me like, well, how do you get them to do things around the house? And my answer is, well, I just ask, you know, I ask them to do it, or, you know, they do it on their own. But
yes, mine too. They do it on their own, or I ask and they go, okay.
Of course, and that's a product of conditioning, right? Yeah. It's not, and I think that we live in such a quick fix society, right? We live in, I want you to fix this now, but it's not I'm going to fix this now. It's a journey. It's an evolution that you have to make the commitment that you want to grow and evolve within this, so that you can get better. Like I didn't wake up one morning and decide I was never going to be reactive to my kids again. I made a decision. I mean, I did wake up and make that decision, but it didn't happen immediately.
Right.
It was a journey in and of itself. It was a journey with the kids. And, you know, we talk about this all, and we ask our kids, like, how does it affect you? Like, if we're hard on you versus if we're gentle on you, which do you prefer? We have conversations. Yeah. And I think that leads to such a grander point. And like, I know that there's parents and moms out there who are going to cringe when I say that, when I say what I'm about to say, but like, you have a child. That is the biggest job you are ever going to have in your life. And if you are not ready to dive headfirst into that and make that a living, then, you know, maybe it's time to reconsider if you're going to have kids or not. Right. Because I mean, you guys all know it's a huge job. Huge. And, you know, myself and Brian, we spent equal amounts of time talking about business as we do as our kids. Strategic conversations about, okay, this didn't really work. What else should we try? But we all know it. How many parents or child does something wrong, gets yelled at, gets sent to room, no follow-up. And then, you know, 3 months later, I get a phone call from a parent saying, well, why are they ever listening to me? And because you have to invest the time.
So Carrie, let's ask, over your many years of counseling and working with families, there must be one or two kind of key issues that keep cropping up over and over again. What are those key issues that you keep hearing about? Because I'm sure many of our listeners and viewers will have those same issues. And what kind of important advice could you give to help handle those?
That's a great question. I think that the first one would be parents who don't understand their kids. Mm-hmm. Parents who don't understand the evolution of development. Yeah. And I don't fault parents for not understanding the evolution of development. The number of times, for example, I've gotten messages from parents who have kids in the 7 to 9-year-old range telling me that their kids are absolutely driving them crazy and being resistant and stubborn is like into the hundreds now. Developmentally, I know that that's a very particular time of growth, that children are developing their personalities and their independence. So it's normal to have the pushback. Right. Parents don't know that, right? So everybody's not walking around with like a developmental handbook in their side. So I think that the most important thing is to take the time to try and understand and relate, because there's a difference between understanding and relating, right? Like I might not be, like, for example, you know, let's just say, you know, someone in my life, I'm going to use Brian. This isn't a real example, but I'm going to use Brian right now. Let's just say, for example, he's an overthinker and he overthinks chronically and it can stress him out, right? I can't relate to that because I'm not an overthinker, but I am an overfeeler. So I can't relate to overthinking, but I can understand the process of it all, right? So understanding and relating is very different. And so many parents think that they can't understand their kids, but you can. So you can understand. Number one, peel back to when you were a child and try and find a relatable point. But number two, anytime, I find a lot of parents get frustrated. This is probably like to come crystal clear on your point, Debbie, is that one of the main frustrations I think parents experience is when kids don't get it fast enough, whatever it is. Don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat, go to bed, eat, whatever the case may be.
Brush your teeth.
Exactly. when they don't get it. I want parents to try and find a relatable point in your life. How long have you been trying to lose the last 10 pounds and not been able to make it work? Exactly. How many times do you fall off the wagon of eating? How long have you been trying to create financial freedom for yourself? Kids are no different. It is an integration process. And, you know, my thing that I always say to parents is repetition is key. And you know what? Yes, sometimes you're going to want to drive your head into a wall because you're like, oh my gosh, we've done this like 20 times. Mm-hmm. But that's your job. Like we have to repeat. You don't squat one time and get a squat pattern down. You repeat it for the rest of your life. So our job as parents, we can best offer the ability to understand and to relate.
Okay.
You know, that will decrease our frustration tolerance, mm-hmm. as well as be able to open up communication channels. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing I would say actually bleeds into the first, communication. We have to talk to our kids and we have to make that our job. So many parents come to me and tell me that they don't know anything about their kid. Like with teenagers in particular, I don't know what's going on with my kid. They don't talk to me. They don't share with me. That's not something that starts when they're 18 years old. That's something that you have to start when they're young. And it's an evolution. My kids come to me about everything. But that wasn't something that they just decided to do one day. That's because since the time they were little babies, it has been ingrained in them that they come and talk to us. So much so, and my son would hate me for telling this story right now, but so much so.
Listen.
Yeah.
My son is 12 years old, right? And he wanted to have a girlfriend this year. And before deciding to have a girlfriend, he came to Brian and I and asked us permission if it was okay to have a girlfriend. And that's a product of the fact that since he was 8 years old and girls started to come onto the radar, we had conversations about it, right? So eyes wide open as parents and communicate with your kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Particularly when they get into their teenage years, because their peers become much more important.
Absolutely.
You know, and so you're competing a little bit with that. But I've always thought too, like, you know, what you put out, you get back. Right? So if you're going to yell at your kids, they're going to yell back at you. If you talk to them, you respect them, you value how they feel and think, no matter what age they are, they're going to value everything that you do too. And you know, my boys are teenagers, and thankfully my husband and I are both educators too, because I do think it does help.
It does make a difference.
But they tell us everything. You know, it's really a nice, I feel very blessed that is the case. But I agree with you, it has to happen all along.
Yeah.
And I also think, you know, for parents who maybe are listening thinking, oh, but I haven't established that, and now I have teenagers, you know, what are your tips for them? You know, it's that they haven't failed, it's not over.
Sure. You know, that's a great question, by the way. And I think that one of the first thing to do is not to look to change your teenager, but look to change yourself.
Absolutely.
Immediately. So and I use this is a tidbit I use when I'm actually coaching couples as well. When there's a partner difficulty, is if you're looking to change your husband, you're looking in the wrong direction, because every relationship in this world has been co-created. Husband, wife, spouse, child, that's co-created. There's a dance of energies and egos that interact, that create the explosions and the difficulties. So if you're looking to your child, your teenager, to change their attitude towards you first, you have to start by changing your attitude towards them. And how you approach them. Pay attention. How do you talk to them? What tone of voice do you do? You know, can I be honest? How much do you hug your kids? Physical contact is so imperative. And, you know, a 17-year-old, a 16-year-old, if you haven't hugged them in like, I don't know, like a month or, 2 years, and you walk up and start mauling their face, they're probably going to be like, whoa, mom, like, what's up? But, there's a gradient to that, right? So just as you walk by them, you give a pat on the shoulder. What language are we using? Are we constantly spewing out negativity towards our kids about what they're doing wrong? This is, if you work in relationships, this is what we talk about in relationships as well. Mm-hmm. Are you constantly nagging your kids? Well, if you're constantly nagging and coming down on them about all the things that they're doing wrong, they're just going to keep perpetuating those behaviors, right? So we want to highlight the positive. We want to talk about what they're doing well. Mm-hmm. Our son will come home, and this is his first year of high school. Up in Canada, the high school system is a little bit different, but it's a very big year for him. And he's like learning the process, and he's made some mistakes along the way, because that's acceptable. We all make mistakes. But, whenever he comes home and he tells us, like, man, like, I did this and I kind of messed up. And then, we address the fact that he messed up, but then we praise him for the fact that he walked in the door and he told us right away.
Sure.
Like, he took responsibility, but we so quickly go to like, don't do this, don't do that. You did this wrong. That like, that's like, it's like you're constantly under fire of what's coming at you. Yeah. So you have to be, as the parent, the one to create the harmonious relationship. And if you're looking for your kid to be the one to start it, you're looking in the wrong place.
Yeah.
It's the very definition of being a grown-up. Somebody has to be the grown-up.
Yeah,
of course. Absolutely. And I want to add to that. I'm going to take that and just move it along in a little bit more of an unconscious programming way. Somebody has to come out of ego first.
Yes.
Because, for example, again, I'm just going to quickly touch on relationship coaching again. Most relationships are two people chronically in ego battling each other.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to be the one step down and come out of ego, right? Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with parenting and kids. It's a bunch of egos flaring. Somebody has to make the decision that I'm going to step out of this first.
Yes, I'm going to step out of this first. And you bring up a couple of key things that I picked up on, again, relating to the relationships, whether they're between two spouses or parent-child, whatever it might be, is there is the person A, person B, and they co-create the third thing.
Always.
And that third thing needs to be fed and cultivated, watered, and tended to
Absolutely.
by both people. And
Absolutely.
like sometimes somebody's resistant to that and they're walking away from the third thing.
Of course.
Somebody wakes up and says, I'm interested in tending to that third thing.
Absolutely. You know, I mean, yes, you're absolutely right. And I'm just going to give two quick examples. You know, I think about when my son has a stubborn streak, and, you know, my pediatrician when he was little was like, that's going to be his greatest asset when he's older. But right now it's going to be your biggest nemesis. Right. But he would throw temper tantrums when he was like 2 years old. Right. And he would do what most 2-year-olds, I hate you, mommy. And he'd scream and he'd yell and I would stay very calm, and this is where I was grateful for my child development days. Yeah. I would stay very calm, and I would go about my business, and I would be like, I'm really sorry you hate me, but mommy loves you so much. Yeah. Yeah. You know, and that would just infuriate him more. Yeah. But eventually the fire dies down because I'm not fueling it, right? So that's the first thing I wanted to say. And the second thing I wanted to say just about the co-creation, I don't know if you ladies picked up on it, but I was very particular to say that I was in abusive relationships, not that I had an abusive ex, because I don't put that onus on him. You know, my day, and we'll talk about this I'm sure more, but the day that I found my freedom from my past was the day that I took accountability for it and recognized that I co-created an abusive relationship. Yeah. And that is a big thing that a lot of people don't want to step out of, an ego. You know, there's expectations, and that's the same thing with parenting. Like, you co-create that. You cannot put that on your child as not doing what they're supposed to be doing. You have to take responsibility on your side as well.
You're part of the, absolutely. Yeah. It's so key. It's so key.
Wow.
Yeah.
So many amazing bits of information here.
I know.
We're going to have another episode.
I know. We're going to have another episode, and we can dig in a little bit further and expand a little bit more. I just want to make sure that we pull out a couple of tidbits. So one, be aware that actual items. So number one, be aware that we each co-create all of the relationships in which we are participants. Yeah. I think that's a huge piece of it. And when it comes to change within a relationship, you have to be willing to change yourself. Yes. Take some responsibility. Any additional takeaways we want to add here?
So many.
Yes, so many.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was just looking to see if I had anything. Those are the main things for me as well.
Can you repeat what you said about how you guys refer to ego?
Yes, we refer to it as bound nature. And just to give you a visual of that, because the reason we do that, by the way, is ego is a very misconstrued concept, and people get very confused about the psychological ego versus egotistical. Yeah. But bound nature, it actually conjures up a very powerful image, the image of being stuck, the image of being locked down. And that's what ego is. If you're an ego, you're stuck and you're holding yourself back. So bound nature is basically not serving you. It's keeping you in purgatory, stuck, reactive, in a negative place.
Yeah. And the opposite is?
The opposite is free nature.
Okay.
The opposite is free nature, and that's a state of being in which we were born.
Yeah. That's a state of flow.
Happy, free flow, or true self is also the way it's often referred to in spiritual speak
circles.
Yeah. And I like the illustration you gave at the beginning about a ladder. Mm-hmm. That the ladder never stops. That was a great illustration.
Yeah, it does.
Good visual.
In 12-step recovery programs, they refer to ego as edging God out.
Yeah.
Which you're kind of not plugged into the source that you open up your life.
Absolutely.
Kind of.
I like that.
You're edging God out, and you're putting yourself in the throne.
Absolutely.
My best thinking got me to wherever I am.
Absolutely.
So talk about chopping the top of the ladder off. If I'm depending on my own best thoughts,
absolutely
not going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not going to get better.
Yeah, and I just want to say for people who are listening, because I know we're almost out of time, but bound nature, ego, is you do not want it to control your life, of course, but that often leads people to being very resistant and angry about it. That's just adding ego on top of ego, which doesn't really help anybody. Your ego is actually your best friend if you learn how to listen to it. Because if you learn how to listen to your ego, that is, free nature and all that is good is not where we find our spots that we have to grow from. it's our ego that we learn where we have to grow from. So if I'm reactive to a situation, that's where I recognize, oh, there's another rung of the ladder. I can move on up. So your ego is your teacher. You just have to learn how. So anytime that I experience, or because we all have ego, and as much as I'm really traveling along the mindset journey myself, I don't think nobody is ever free of ego, especially in a society where we're under so much influence. But if I feel any ego moments or resistance or anything like that, for me nowadays, it's wow, that's a lightning ball, a light bulb going off right there. I have room to grow, and that's where I'm like, oh, I can climb up the ladder a little bit more.
That's right.
It serves us if we learn how to use it.
Right.
Yes.
It's sort of like a thermometer that you go, oh, interesting. I'm getting a little feverish here. Interesting. I better.
Exactly. Absolutely.
And what I like to say is there is no such thing as failure. It's just what did I say? It's a freedom to grow.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Feedback for growth.
Feedback.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I love it.
Great. Well, this has been a truly transformative conversation with Carrie Campbell. Carrie, please tell our listeners and our viewers where they can find you online.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. In the social media world, the best place is on Facebook. I have to be honest with you. Our websites right now are currently going through some retooling. Okay. So the best place is find me on Facebook. Carrie Campbell, you'll find me. My profile's open. You can follow me, send me a message. All my messages are returned if you reach out to me. That's where all the goodies are.
Okay. And Carrie?
That's right. Yeah. Carrie, Campbell, like the soup.
Yeah, and there are a bunch of Carrie Campbells on Facebook, so we'll make sure we leave the right link in the show notes.
Yes.
Perfect.
And I'll also put in a plug for the Mindset Performance Academy.
Yes.
Performance Institute.
Fantastic.
Great program. I've taken the level 1 course. It's a really, really good program.
Oh, good.
So I'll recommend that to people as well.
Fantastic. Awesome. Thank you.
All right.
This is great.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. You have been listening to The Mighty Married Moms. We ask you, please, to leave us a rating and review. Please subscribe
on
iTunes and tell your family and friends what a great conversation you were just listening to. So we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Mighty Married Moms. Tune in twice a week on Mondays and Thursdays to meet fascinating and inspiring guests who will help you create the life you've always wanted.
You can find these episodes and special gifts just for you at mightymarriedmoms.com, as well as a link to our Facebook community,
where we continue the conversation around the kitchen table. Please also help share the love by leaving a review on iTunes. We'll see you next time.